Welcome to New Jersey Capitol Report. I'm Rafael P. Roman.
And I'm Steve Adubato. We're pleased to be joined by Steve Wollmer, who is the Director of Communications, the New Jersey Education Association. Good to see you, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
There is never a loss of things to talk about when it comes to education or education reform. Let's focus today on the tenure issue, teacher tenure issue, tied to teacher evaluation issue.
And merit pay, too. We'll throw that in.
Put it in there. As we do this program in late April, where are we right now as it relates to the issue of teacher tenure?
Well, there are discussions going on among all stakeholders, and the stakes are very high right now. This is a very big decision we're about to make in New Jersey about what road we go down with respect to tenure reform. Tenure is a very misunderstood concept. It's not a job for life. What it is a process. It's a process for fair dismissal. And how you conduct that process, whether you have due process for public employees who are accused of not doing their jobs, is a key part of this discussion.
What would you say to those who have argued for a long time, Steve, that it is simply too difficult, too costly, to frankly get rid of teachers who are not performing and have not been performing in the classroom for too long?
The two chief complaints are that it takes too long and it costs too much, because the courts are involved. Anytime you get courts and lawyers involved, you get delays and costs run up. It shouldn't take years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to dismiss an ineffective teacher. We agree with that. And that's why our proposal does something very different. We take the courts out of play, just like they did in Massachusetts about 20 years ago, and submit these cases directly to an arbitrator.
So let's make it clear. The New Jersey Education Association has a clear proposal out there
we do.
to deal with it. Okay, break it down.
Sure. We add a fourth year, not because 4 is more than 3 years. Right now it takes 3 years to get tenure.
And you're saying it will take 4 years to get tenure?
Under our proposal. Right now, in the first 3 years, any teacher can be dismissed for no reason. They don't have to tell you why. You're just gone.
Right.
And by the way, 40% of newly hired teachers never get tenure in this state. That's
40%, because they quit before the 3 years are over.
Or they're dismissed with no reason given. So we take it to a fourth year, but not because 4 is greater than 3. We want to add what's called a residency year, like a medical residency, where a teacher would get extensive attention from colleagues and veteran teachers to help them get started in the right direction. And then for 3 more years, they would get mentoring and a lot of help, so that we really want to make sure that we keep the best teachers in the classroom. We lose too many good ones in those first 3 years.
And you say you're taking it out of the courts. What do you mean by that?
Right now, an administrative law judge hears any appeal of a tenure dismissal. What we would do is say, take the courts out and just do it in front of an arbitrator. It's a one-day hearing. It takes much less time, just a matter of a month or two, and you get a ruling right away.
So Steve, you said that you agree that it shouldn't take too long to get rid of a teacher. But why didn't you propose this before? I mean, it makes perfect sense.
We started talking about this a year and a half, 2 years ago. We supported tenure.
Even before that, I'm saying.
We were involved in the earlier version of tenure reform back in, I believe it was the mid-90s, which we thought was going to help. They added more administrative law judges. But in the end, when you get into the courts, that's when you start running into long processes that just take too long and cost too much.
But is it fair to say, Steve, that you and your colleagues at the New Jersey Education Association have felt a fair amount of pressure to really take a look at your position and say, you know what, we've been real good at protecting our members. How many members do you have, by the way?
We have 200,000 members, but 110, 120,000 are classroom teachers who would be directly affected here.
But right now in this debate with Senator Teresa Ruiz, who is the chair of the Senate Education Committee, and some others, but she is the primary person who has proposed this tenure reform legislation, that we really need to put some more skin in the game. And that is when you become very public with this proposal. Is that fair?
Well, the problem with the proposal, the Ruiz proposal, which the governor agrees with, is it takes away due process. And
How does it do that?
Because it says you can lose tenure after 2 either ineffective or partially effective evaluations. If you have no tenure, you have no process for appealing an unfair dismissal. That's what due process is.
Wait a minute, but I mean, it takes 2 years of bad teaching in order for that to kick in.
Under our proposal, 2 years of bad teaching, you would probably lose your tenure because you would lose your job.
So what's it so?
Well, the difference is you have due process. You have the right to appeal if you believe it's unfair. These are public jobs. And the last thing we need is another 120,000 patronage jobs in New Jersey.
Well, okay.
That's why.
But you don't think that's really you don't really think that's going to happen, do you?
This is New Jersey. This is America. and anytime you have public jobs, the reason we had tenure in the first place is because people were putting their uncles or kids into jobs.
Okay, let's talk about an issue that's big here, big in Connecticut, and really big in New York, and that's teacher evaluation. We've just gone through, I think, 1 year. There's been a pilot program.
It's in its first year, right?
11 districts throughout the state.
And they're going to add some more next year.
Talk about teacher evaluation. Do you know enough about how it has gone in those 11 districts? Have you talked to the teachers to see if it's gone as well as hoped?
The early feedback is pretty good, but we haven't gotten into the real meat of the matter, Raphael, which is the governor's desire and the desire of others to use standardized tests as a determining factor, 50% or more. All the research says don't do this. Just last year, Educational Testing Service, which makes these tests.
ETS.
Yes, in Princeton. They make a lot of money on these tests. They don't want their tests misused. These tests are supposed to be diagnostic. They're not supposed to be making critical decisions about teachers' jobs. And all of the research says there are 2/3 of the factors affecting student achievement occur outside the classroom. Teachers have no control over whether parents are reading to their kids, whether they're checking their homework, whether there's homelessness or unemployment or any of that.
Let me jump in here, Rob. So, Steve, what should we be using? What criteria should be used to evaluate teachers?
We're not against the use of standardized tests. I want to be clear on that.
Should it not be 50%?
Exactly.
What percent
no
should
one
it be?
knows what the percentage is.
Well, what do you think?
Well, we say multiple measures of student achievement. Standardized tests, projects, portfolios, assessments that the teacher develops or the district develops, but that it has to be part of something much larger.
But Steve, you know, I interviewed the commissioner, Cerf,
Chris
about a month,
Cerf.
Chris Cerf, about a month and a half ago at the Celebration of Teaching and Learning in New York, and he said more or less that he's been misunderstood, that the 50% where people think it's standardized test, it's all of the things that you just mentioned, included in that 50%.
Well, the problem is they haven't specified that, and in New York, where it's 40%, it turns out when you really look at it, if you don't get a satisfactory within that 40%, then you lose anyway. So 40% becomes 100%. The bottom line is that there are a lot of factors that affect student achievement, and teachers control about 1/3 of those. So the standardized testing is so imprecise. There's a 35% margin of error from class to class. It's a small sample. You got 25 kids.
So, sorry, Steve, for interrupting. So what else should we include here? I just want to be clear. What else?
Well, you've got to have good observations. And by the way, not only are we adding a 4th year, but we're saying
before tenure is considered.
Right. So now it's 4 years, and we're saying instead of the current 3 annual evaluations for non-tenures, make it 4. So 4 evaluations times 4 years is 16 evaluations. If we don't know after 16 evaluations whether we've got a good teacher, we've got to check who our evaluators are.
Do you believe, with all the contentious dialogue, well, some cases there hasn't been dialogue, you believe there's common ground here between you and those who, between your organization and those who have opposed your organization's position on these issues?
Everybody wants good teachers in the classroom. We obviously have great teachers in the state. We lead the nation in student achievement, or we either lead it or near the top. But the problem is, everyone knows, the governor isn't talking about the suburban districts. He's talking about the urban districts and struggling schools there. You don't take the jobs of 120,000 teachers and toss them into the wind to address what you think is a problem in the urban districts. That's the concern. We all want the best teachers in the classroom, and we want to make sure we keep them there, too.
2 program notes. One, first of all, thank you, Steve, for joining us. We'll have Commissioner Chris Cerf joining us in a future edition of Capital Report to express the administration, the Christie administration's view on some of these same issues. Also want to disclose that the NJEA is a major underwriter of some of the Caucus Educational Corporation's programming on some other topics. So thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Frank.